Welcome back to another episode on Hovey Fellow, and today we are talking about Peter Sutcliffe, aka the Yorkshire Ripper. Between the years of 1969 and 1980, the Yorkshire Ripper terrorized the women of Britain, most of whom were prostitutes. Peter Sutcliffe was born on June 2nd, 1946, in Bengley, Yorkshire. He grew up in a Catholic, working class, two-parent home with five siblings. At the age of 15, he dropped out of school and took on several jobs. And oddly enough, at 18, he was working at a morgue and as a gravedigger. Co-workers from these jobs said he had a very morbid sense of humor, often making jokes about death, like robbing the morgue of bodies. Sutcliffe later admitted that it was around this time that he gained an obsession with sex workers, often watching them conduct business on the streets of Leeds, a city in West Yorkshire. However, other than these odd jokes that he made, he seemed to be a pretty normal guy. He always kept a steady job and eventually married a Ukrainian woman by the name of Sonia Sharma in 1974. For majority of his time as the Yorkshire Ripper, he worked as a truck driver. It was this job that allowed him to keep up his hobby stalking and killing sex workers. As I'm sure most of you know that truck stops are notorious for being a spot where sex workers conduct business, which is where the term lot lizard comes from. His first known attack was in 1969, where he attacked a woman with a stone in a sock. She survived the attack but declined to press charges. He didn't attack again until October 1975, when he attacked Wilma McCann from behind and stabbed her in the neck 15 times. After this, Emily Jackson was his next kill in January of 76, when he picked her up from a street where she was working and stabbed her multiple times with a screwdriver, then proceeded to stump her out so bad that his boot print was left on her body. Within the next 5 years, he killed a total of 13 women and attacked at least seven other women who survived. His youngest victim was 14, who he actually attacked with a hammer from behind, but she survived. His oldest victim was 47, and he attacked her on her way home from work. The police weren't aware of the 14-year-old until he confessed years down the line. In multiple ways, this case was actually handled pretty poorly by the police. He was responsible for multiple attacks at the time that the police hadn't connected to his case because that didn't see the woman as his target. In 1976, Marcella Claxton reported him for an attack and gave his description, but because she wasn't a prostitute, the police didn't connect the crimes. Marcella was a black woman who was 4 months pregnant at the time, and this attack caused her to miscarry. She later said the police were racist and did not believe her when she told them that he was a white male. The first real break in the case was in 1977, when police traced a bill that was left in the pocket of a dead sex worker, Jean Jordan, back to a bank that led to Sutcliffe being interviewed amongst other men. However, he had an alibi that he was at a family party. Each of the 9 times that he was interviewed, his wife corroborated whatever alibi he gave. In 1979, police were sent letters and a hoax tape allegedly from the Yorkshire Ripper. The man on the tape had an accent not similar to someone from Yorkshire, so this alone caused them to rule out Sutcliffe, saying that they didn't have enough evidence despite all the women saying he had a Yorkshire accent and giving a description matching him. In the time that they spent chasing this dead accent lead, he was able to kill 3 more women before he was actually caught. In November of 1980, a friend of Sutcliffe tipped the police that he was the Yorkshire Ripper, but they claimed that the reports got lost amongst a huge load of paperwork that they had from the case, so he remained free. In January 2nd, 1981, Sutcliffe was sitting in the car with a prostitute when police ran his tags, which were fake. So he was arrested and questioned again about the Yorkshire case, where he eventually admitted that it was indeed him. In May of 81, his trial began for 13 counts of murder in the first degree. Sutcliffe himself said at his trial, "It was just a miracle that they didn't apprehend me earlier. They had all the facts." He pled not guilty and said he'd only plead guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminishing responsibility. He claimed that he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and was on a divine mission from God, who commanded him to kill these women and clean the streets up. This plea was unsuccessful, and he was found guilty on 13 counts of murder and 7 counts of attempted murder. During his trial, the prosecutor made a comment saying, "Some of the victims were prostitutes, but perhaps the saddest part of this case is some were not. The last 6 victims were totally respectable women." This implication that one life mattered more than the other sparked an outrage, and rightfully so. The people of Yorkshire rallied together to protest about the comments of the prosecution and how poorly the case was handled. In the end, Sutcliffe was sentenced to 20 concurrent life sentences. Had the death penalty not have been made illegal in 65, I'm pretty sure that would have been his punishment. Oddly enough, he was actually diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia in 84 and transferred to Broadmoor Mental Facility, even though he had already been deemed fit for trial. While serving time, he was attacked several times by inmates, with one of these attacks leaving him blind in his left eye. He applied for parole in 2010 but was denied, and a judge let him know that reapplying would be useless. In 2016, he was sent to a non psychiatric maximum security prison. In 2020, Sutcliffe was seen for issues dealing with his heart, and it is believed that because he stayed in the hospital longer than he should have, it caused him to contract the COVID virus, which ultimately killed him due to underlying issues in 2020 at the age of 74 after he refused treatment. His wife actually held a private funeral for him despite them being divorced. Sources say she told the family he would be cremated and she would allow them to attend via Zoom. However, Sonia had the funeral at a private location and never initiated this private Zoom call, and this upset the family. It actually wasn't until he died and the case began gaining more attention that the police department finally apologized to the public and the family of the victims for their distasteful comments in the press and during the trial. Talk to me in the comments, guys. This man died just 5 years ago. I wonder what type of story his fellow inmates would have about him other than beating him up. The wife did deny knowing that he was the Yorkshire Ripper, but do y'all think she was telling the truth? I'm curious to know his last words on his deathbed. Let me just say, I always try to sum up the case the best that I can, but this was a very hard case because there were so many facts. Make sure you like and subscribe to Hovey Fellow. Thank you for watching episode 4 of Hovey Fellow.